Greetings! Today is March 1st, which means that according to my own internal calendar, it's spring. I know that spring doesn't actually start until March 20th, however, I do have this internal calendar that works with my knitting where it just says that spring is March, April, May. Simplifies it down to that. So this is the time of year where I finish up my heavier winter projects and start transitioning into my lighter weight projects for spring, summer. So I'm going to talk about the two projects that I'm currently working on because I do believe that that's relevant, and then I have a couple of overarching goals for the spring, and then I will talk about the 5 patterns that I plan to knit this spring. First off, what I'm currently wearing is the Staffin vest by the Crea Bea. I knit this out of Knit Picks Upcycle Alpaca. It is a recycled blend from Knit Picks that they no longer have for sale. They only do limited runs of their recycled blends typically. This is the grass colorway, and this yarn is a mixture of recycled alpaca, wool, and acrylic, and the alpaca still has its guard hairs on it, I believe. It is very prickly, and I can't wear it next to skin, hence why I knit a vest out of it. This is actually my first time wearing this vest. It is my most recently finished project. So I'm going to talk about the 2 projects I'm currently working on real quick, and then we'll get into the spring plans. One of the main projects I'm currently working on that I am almost finished with is my last long sleeve pullover sweater of this winter season, and it is the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta. I'm knitting this out of Barocco Ultra Alpaca. I don't know what colorways I'm using because the colorways on the labels are numbers and I don't want to keep track of that. But the Lakes Pullover is initially knit with a solid color all the way through. I have decided to stripe it because my mom got me this yarn around Easter time last year, and I thought it would look really nice in a striped sweater all together, and I like the fit of the Lakes Pullover. So I am knitting a striped version of the Lakes Pullover. I'm currently working on the ribbing at the bottom, and then I just have the second sleeve to do. It shouldn't take me that long. It should be done within the next week. The reason I am mentioning this project is because once I finish it, I will be able to cast on one of the patterns that I'm going to talk about in my plans. My next project that I'm going to talk about actually does fit into one of my goals for this spring that I will talk about in a moment, but this is the Rocket Tee by Tanis Lavelle. It is a striped v-neck t-shirt. It stripes together a fingering weight yarn with a lace weight mohair. The fingering weight I'm using is from Spinaway Farms. I got it at the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival in 2023. It was 30% off. Hello, Editing Zero here. I meant to say that it was 50% off, not 30% off. It was 50% off. So I got this huge skein that was really 2 skeins for $30. I don't know what all is in this yarn. I do know for a fact that there is Angora and mohair in it, and then either merino or alpaca, and then a little bit of nylon, I think. There's a lot of stuff in this yarn, and it's been sitting in my stash, so I'm using it now. And then my lace weight mohair is Knit Picks Aloft in black. I plan to knit this to have long sleeves. The pattern is initially written to have short sleeves. There are actually 2 Rocket Tee patterns, the Rocket Tee and the Rocket Tee DK. The Rocket Tee DK has the instructions for sleeves. I'm knitting the Rocket Tee with the fingering weight yarn because I have fingering weight yarn and I'm just going to add sleeves to it. So this is my Rocket Tee that I'm currently working on, and I guess this is my first spring knit. I live in Northern Virginia, so early spring wearing a lightweight long sleeve should work for me on at least some days. Now to those goals that I was mentioning. I don't regularly acquire hand-dyed yarns into my stash. However, when I do, I tend to hoard them. I don't use them immediately because I can rarely get them, so I feel a little bit nervous knitting with them. I went to the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival in 2023 and I got 4 skeins of yarn there, and I have only completely knit 1 of those skeins. So I knit a hat out of one of those skeins, and then my second skein, which is really 2 skeins. I'm making it sound more complicated than it is, I think. But one of those yarns is going to be in my well, it is in my rocket tee. I'm going to be using up one of those yarns in that rocket tee, and then I have 2 more projects that should use up the other yarn I got at the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival. Because I can't knit with hand-dyed yarn that often, I've been hoarding it, and it's kind of overwhelming me at this point, so I need to use it up. It's been sitting in my stash for far too long. Speaking of hand-dyed yarn, last summer, my mom, my sister, and I made a trip up to Hershey, Pennsylvania, where we met with my friend who is from New Hampshire, and while we were there, we went to a yarn store in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania, which is neighboring Hershey, I'm pretty sure. But I got some yarn there that, again, has been sitting in my stash. My mom got me this yarn from this yarn store, and I've been too nervous to use it, so I'm going to use it. I'm going to use up my stash yarn instead of letting it just sit there. Yarn is meant to be used. It's not meant to just sit on shelves. What is the point of having this pretty yarn if it's just sitting on shelves? It'll be better to wear it. So 3 out of the 5 projects I'm going to talk about are going to be out of the kind of fancier hand-dyed yarns, and then 2 of them are going to be out of my more typical affordable yarns that I tend to purchase on my own. So that's the thing. I'm trying to use up some of my stash yarn because it glares at me while I sleep and it wants to know why I'm not using it, so I'm going to use it. So I will start talking about my plans, my patterns that I want to cast on this spring. I'm going to first talk about the next pattern that I will be starting because it is a test knit, and once I'm finished with my Lakes Pullover, hopefully within the next week, I will be starting this project. It is out of one of the more affordable yarns that I talked about, and I'm going to be knitting the Shirt of Fire and Ice by James and Watts. It is currently in pattern testing. The pattern is currently in testing. It releases in late April, I'm pretty sure, so I need to get started on it. The yarn I'm using is Drops Muscat. This will actually be my first time using a yarn from Drops. They're a very well-known, affordable yarn option, so I'm excited to try out some yarn from them. The Shirt of Fire and Ice, it initially uses Spin Cycle. Spin Cycle is really out of my budget. So I'm going with the more affordable Drops Muscat, and I'm going to stripe these 2 together. This is a modular knitting pattern, and I do really enjoy knitting James's modular patterns, and I'm excited to see how this turns out. This is a 100% mercerized cotton, and this is the colorway 53. Well, that's boring. And this is color 17. Lovely. But I think this will look really good striped together in the Shirt of Fire and Ice. And this green matches my mirror that is supposed to be hanging up on my wall. However, my cat knocked it down, so it is currently on the floor. But this will be the next project that I cast on, and it will be my first cotton t-shirt of this warm weather season. Now for some of that hand-dyed yarn I was talking about. I'm going to be knitting another rocket tee that is long sleeved and out of fingering weight yarn because I can, and I like the way that that pattern fits on me. I do think that v-necks are very flattering on me and I need to knit more of them. However, I don't knit a lot of v-necks. I keep telling myself I should knit more v-necks, but I don't. So I'm knitting another v-neck. I don't know if that made sense. Anyway, this is from Neighborhood Fiber Co. This is yarn that I got at that yarn store in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. And this is out of the Studio Sock base, which is 100% organic merino. And I want to stripe all 3 of these colorways. This is Logan Circle, this is DuPont Circle, and this is Banksy. And I saw these 3 together in the yarn store and I just thought that they would look good in a project. We'll have to see. My mom doesn't really think that the green really goes, but we'll see how it looks. I think the green here has some brighter bits that aren't really showing that well in the skein, so I'm very interested to see how this works up. And my least favorite thing about knitting the rocket tee, I'll get this, hold on. My least favorite thing about knitting this pattern is that you start knitting it flat, which I don't mind. However, purling in mohair is not fun. I am fine with purling. I have no problems with purling. However, with mohair, I just don't enjoy it. So I won't be purling with mohair for my next rocket tee. I don't know when I will be casting this on. I don't know if I will actually be able to cast this on in time to wear it before it gets too warm for it, but I've been wanting to start this project for a while. It needs to be started, it needs to be knit, and if I can't wear it this season, I will wear it when it gets cool again. So this is going to be a rocket tee by Tanis Lavelle. I don't know what I'm doing when I'm holding these up. Rocket tee. And then for some of the yarn that I got at the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival, this is from Shirsty Cat Designs. This is the BFL stock base, which is a 75% superwash blue face luster and 25% nylon. This is in the Amazon colorway, which is a super bright green that I love. I should be getting my custom fit manual wheelchair sometime in March, and the frame is going to be around this color. So when I get my wheelchair, I do plan to cast on this project and have a mini mock neck tank that matches it. So I will be knitting a second mini mock neck tank. I've knit one before in black and it didn't work out the best for me. There are some modifications that I need to make for fit, and I plan to do that with this one, and I think it will be nice. And I think I will be able to wear it this spring. It is a wool and it is a sleeveless project, so probably, you know, even though it is sleeveless, because it's out of wool, I don't think I'll be wearing it much this summer. However, I do think I can manage to squeeze it in some in spring and then again come fall. And I'm excited to start on this. I really want to see how this yarn works up. I let this hand-dyed yarn sit in my stash, and I'm super interested to see how it'll knit up, and then I never knit it up. So I'm going to knit it up. I'm telling you, I'm going to knit it up, and I'm going to stick to my plans, and I'm going to use this yarn that has been sitting in my stash, and I'm going to knit a second mini mock neck tank that works better for me than the first did. So this will be a mini mock neck tank, and it will also match my wheelchair, which, interesting thing, you know, my legs may not work properly. I am actually in March as well going to be fitted for leg braces that should hopefully help me walk as much as possible so I don't deal with any major atrophy in my legs. However, I can't walk properly and I can't manage distances at all, so I will be getting my first custom fit manual wheelchair. Not my first wheelchair, but my first one that's custom fit. And, you know, again, my legs may not be able to work properly. I may have spina bifida and other spine issues as well that make me not even be able to feel my legs sometimes. But there is a silver lining there in regards to my knitting, and that is because I am standing a lot of, I'm not standing a lot of the time, because I am sitting a lot of the time. Words are hard. Because I'm sitting a lot of the time, I can actually get away with knitting a lot of my sweaters, especially the ones that I plan to, you know, wear out of the house, because I can't really walk that far, so I use wheelchair out of the house. Anyway, I can get away with knitting my sweaters to be a lot more cropped than I would be able to if I were someone who could walk properly. That is what I'm saying. When you're sitting, you can get away with knitting your sweaters. I give up. And my last project that uses some of that hand-dyed yarn that I've been talking about, this skein is from Cross Creek Sock in O'Keefe's Petunia. It is a fingering weight 75-25 merino nylon yarn rehab at your local yarn store. This is some that I got in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. It is a dark purpley, reddish, pinky in some areas variegated yarn that I think looks really nice. And then this is the last skein of yarn that I got at the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival. This is from Robin's Promise, which the owner of Robin's Promise actually used to have a yarn store that was in the Williamsburg area, and that was the first ever yarn store that I went, like the first ever like yarn store, like small local yarn store that I ever went to. She closed because she is working a lot more on fiber festivals, but I picked up this skein at the Shenandoah Valley Fiber Festival. It is another 75-25 merino nylon in the Western Emerald Hummingbird color, and this is one of my favorite colors. I do really like a kind of emeraldy green. I just like green in general. I'm a fan of green. And also, my cat likes to steal my hand-dyed yarns when she wants to be fed because she knows that I care about them. And she's like, I'm going to steal these, I'm going to hold these hostage, and you're going to feed me now. So, I don't know if you can see it that well, but the label has been bitten into, and the other skein of yarn fell off of my lap. Hold on a moment. Anyway, I have these two hand-dyed yarns that I plan to knit alongside a commercially dyed, just solid black. So I have 3 colors. I plan to use these yarns for a Rumble Raglan by Lydia Morrow, or What Lydia Made. I've been wanting to knit a Rumble Raglan for a very long time, and I've had so many ideas for color combinations, so if I knit it and it works, I'll probably be knitting several of them. But I've been wanting to knit the pattern for a long time, and I think this yarn and then a black, it will look really good. So that is what I want. I want this sweater to be my birthday sweater for this year. My birthday is on May 12th, and I have a tradition where every year I will knit a sweater to wear on my birthday or to my birthday dinner, and I want that to be the Rumble Raglan, and I want it to be knit out of this yarn, and I think it will look good. So this is my 3rd project I have that I plan to knit with hand-dyed yarn, and once I knit all of these hand-dyed yarns, I should have knit almost all of the hand-dyed yarn out of my stash, which will be like a major weight that is lifted off of my brain, because it just sits there on my shelves and it stares on me, and then my cat steals my skeins of hand-dyed yarn because she wants me to feed her, and it's just a lot to keep track of. So those are, I just finished talking about the 3 projects that I want to knit out of my hand-dyed yarn, and then I mentioned one that I plan to knit out of a commercially dyed yarn, and then I have one more that I want to knit out of a commercially dyed yarn. I'm not going to be able to hold the yarn up right now because it is currently in storage. I know exactly where it is. I just need to get it out of the box it's in. It was put in that box when we moved. I need to get it out of the box. So I'm going to talk about my last project. Project number 5. aka the project that I have the yarn for. However, that yarn is in storage, so I can't hold the yarn up right here to show you. That project is the Home Cardigan by Caidree. It is a bulky weight cardigan, so you may be wondering, spring knitting? Really? It's knit with a worsted weight held together with a mohair. Spring knitting? Really? However, I plan to knit it with a worsted weight yarn, a worsted weight cotton yarn held together with crochet thread. And I have knit a sweater out of that combination before, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to be knitting it again, and I have the yarn in stash to knit it with. The Walmart Mainstays, just plain black yarn. It's another yarn that my mom actually got for me a while ago. But it is a really soft cotton yarn. However, it does pill a lot. So I never knit with it on its own. I always hold it with a lace weight crochet thread. So the crochet thread I'm going to use is just Aunt Lydia's black crochet thread. I'm going to hold that together with the Mainstays cotton, and I'm going to knit a cardigan, and I have a feeling it will be very wearable. It's going to be a heavy garment because it is at a kind of bulkier gauge out of cotton, and cotton is a very heavy fiber. However, I do have my cotton sweater that I knit with a strand of crochet thread. As like, I do have my other sweater I'm talking about that I knit out of a strand of worsted weight cotton and a strand of crochet thread, and I am able to wear that on like 60-degree days. So I think having a cardigan out of the kind of heavier cotton should work really well for transitional weather. So I plan to knit the Home Cardigan by Caidree. Or at least I think it's the Home Cardigan. Imagine if it's not the Home Cardigan that I'm talking about and I'm just completely blanking on what the actual name is. Either way, I will be putting the correct information up on screen and or in the description. So I tend to work, I work on my memory I'm not working on my memory. I work based on my memory. I don't write anything down. This is all coming straight out of my brain. So, correct information will be in the description if I am telling you any incorrect information. I'm a very put together person. I'm actually not a very put together person. Obviously, that was sarcasm. If you hear me say that I'm a very put together person, know that I'm being sarcastic. I think we're getting to the time where I need to stop filming myself talking, because I'm just gonna start verbally devolving, if that makes sense. Words are gonna become even mushier than they already are. If you have made it to the end of this video, thank you very much for watching. Even if you haven't made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. But if you haven't made it to the end of this video, you can't hear me say thank you for watching. So anyway, if you have watched this video in its entirety and you are now to the end point where I am talking, and you worked on a project while you watched this video, please let me know what you're working on. If you are knitting on something, if you're crocheting on something, quilting, I don't know. But if you worked on something while watching this video, feel free to let me know what you've been working on. I am very much so interested in hearing it. I'm not always the best at responding to comments, but I do see them. So feel free to share what you've been working on. I'm going to go now. Again, thank you for watching this video. If you are interested in finding me on any other social media platforms, that will be in the link in the description, and you can find me other places. And yeah, I think that's all for now, all I mean to say. So I'm going to go now. I'm probably going to close out this video with a video of my cat, because she hasn't made any appearances. She's been sleeping on my bed, and y'all deserve to see my cat. Her name is Pearl. Yes, after the stitch, spelled P-U-R-L. And I love her very much. She only has one eyeball, because in the summer of 2022, she had an eyeball ulcer, and she had to have one of her eyeballs removed. But she's fine. She's a perfectly fine, singular eyeball cat, and I love her. And now you get to see her.